Hey friends, it's been a minute and I do apologize. Thank you all for sticking with me as usual. Thank you all for those who watched my Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head video for the positive feedback on that. A couple people asked me to do more, and I will. What I want to talk about today, but I am going to talk about the new John Lennon compilation on my next video coming out. But I'm late to the party talking about this, but other film channels have talked about it if you're talking about films at home and a couple other places. But it was the notice or the announcement and then the backtrack that Disney did about the back catalog, that they have no intention of releasing any more 4K UHD Blu-ray discs, or for that matter, Blu-ray discs of any back catalog stuff, including their own catalog. Now, that was originally reported by Bill Hunt on the Digital Bits. There's a thread going on HomeTheaterForum.com, which I also belong to, where people were disputing Bill Hunt and his unnamed sources. I've been a fan or a viewer of Digital Bits since the 2000s, since the DVD revolution, and I don't know if I should believe Bill Hunt at the Digital Bits or what's going on. I do know that Bill Hunt lately on Digital Bits has been posting all these things about the death of physical media while he's pushing new equipment for streaming. I'm always kind of iffy about that, but Bill Hunt is usually a guy that I follow. But if this is true about Disney eventually backtracked and said, "No, we don't know where people got this information from. We will continue to support 4K UHD and Blu-ray when the title warrants it." Here's my big concern, and I'm repeating myself from other videos, so I do apologize, but I feel some of the things that I'm saying is worth repeating. First off, physical media for Blu-ray and 4K discs is dropping, but it's not dropping like all the way down. It's still a big market, and it's still a big market. Let's put it like that. It's maybe not as big as streaming, but I've stated this before. Buying and owning movies was always a niche market. Back in the day, for people that don't remember, but from people from my generation, Generation X, growing up, we would go to the video store and rent our movies for the weekend. We'd go to Blockbuster. We'd go to West Coast Video, where I worked in high school. We would go to Hollywood or our local neighborhood video store, whatever. And we would rent a bunch of movies for the weekend on VHS. We start watching on Friday and then watch maybe on Saturday, and then you'd return them on Sunday night. That's what we did. That was going to Blockbuster. That is what streaming is. That is what streaming has taken the place of. Netflix and chill. It used to be Blockbuster and chill. Now it's Netflix and chill. Buying movies was always a niche market. It was always for the collectors, always for the film fanatics. To give you an example, only the real hot summer titles would be immediately available for sale on VHS. Not all the time. Top Gun came out in the summer of 1986 and finally came out on VHS to buy in the summer and rent in the summer of 87. With a big sponsorship by Pepsi, I remember. And Batman, Tim Burton's Batman, came out in the theaters of 89, and the fall of 89 it came out on VHS. So that was the quickest turnaround I've ever seen. But a majority of the movies that you bought, you didn't buy. You rented. And if you wanted to buy them, well, you're going to be paying the retail costs that the video store paid. Like, I remember when Dances with Wolves came out. Dances with Wolves was priced at $89.99 if you were going to buy it when it came out. It wasn't really priced to buy. You went to rent this big Academy Award winning movie. You rented. And maybe 2, 3, 4 months down the line, after it's been out and you're trying to consolidate space on your shelves, it was sold as a used. You would take some off your shelf and sell it used for people. So the stores would have used VHS sections for sale. So buying movies was for the select group of people, on VHS and especially on Laserdisc. It was for that select group of people. And I think where the industry kind of tripped up was when DVD came out, which DVD was honestly a replacement for Laserdisc, and eventually became a replacement for VHS as well, too, was they mass marketed it. It wasn't really designed for the mass market. And the problem with Blu-ray was, again, they were designing it for the mass market. Blu-ray was intended for those film fanatics. So I think we need to go back to that mentality. Yes, there was a big boom with people buying DVDs and VHS tapes. Buying DVDs and Blu-rays, and it's dropping. But I think it's going back to what it was in the 90s. I could be wrong, but that's my take on it. But getting back to Disney, they own a bunch of Fox titles. They own a bunch of 20th Century Fox titles, which now they call it 20th Century Studios, and for television, 20th Studios now. But since the sale of Fox to Disney, Disney now owns The French Connection. Disney now owns Oliver Stone's Wall Street. They own Fight Club. They own Alien. They own the World War II epic The Longest Day. They own Cleopatra. They own the first CinemaScope motion picture, The Robe. They own Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. They own basically every single 20th Century Fox title. And I said this, I believe, last year or the beginning of this year. I forgot what time. But from what I heard, Fox, prior to the sale, was all prepared. They had all set to go a 4K disc of Fight Club and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And when Disney got it, they shelved it. So the talk was, and the talk is, Disney has no plans to issue those on disc. Yet I know us film fanatics, we want those. Yeah, the average everyday person would not want those, but the collector would want those. I want my copy of Fight Club. I want my copy of Butch and Sundance. Butch and Sundance is one of my top 10 favorite movies. So yeah, I want my copy of those, and streaming is not going to cut it. Now Disney, the rumor mill now for Disney Plus is that they are now going to have a section at some point of all of the more adult-themed movies. Not X-rated, let's get that straight, but the more hard PG-13 and R-rated titles from Fox, which they own. Touchstone, which Touchstone was a subdivision of Disney that they started in the 80s for more adult-themed films. The first film on Touchstone was Ron Howard's Splash. And then they also had, Martin Scorsese's The Color of Money, the Tom Cruise horrible film Cocktail, my opinion. So supposedly they're going to have a section on Disney Plus where you have to enter your security code and your age to make sure that you are of the correct age, to watch these, 17 or over. So you could watch The French Connection at some point on Disney Plus. Seems kind of strange. But I still want physical releases of those films. You cannot neglect the rich history that Disney got. Not just that. Let's talk about Marilyn Monroe, Billy Wilder directing The 7-Year Itch. You own that. So the idea of no physical releases is bothersome. Now, the other rumor was they were talking about going and licensing some of these to the boutique companies. Arrow, which is starting to put out 4K discs. Kino Lorber Studio Classics. Shout Factory. Criterion, but Criterion's not doing 4K, which is not bothersome to me. But that's a rumor, and I highly doubt that. Disney rarely gives anything to the boutique companies. They're doing some with their Touchstone titles now, physically. like Martin Scorsese's Kundun came out on Kino Lorber Studio Classics last year. I don't know what the truth is here, and I don't know what's going on. The bottom line is the industry is in a weird situation. A lot of it having to do with the pandemic as well. Some of the upsetting things to me that I did find out is that a lot of the people who were in the home video area of Fox are no longer there. I think Sean Belson is no longer there, and Sean Belson was the guy who was responsible for a lot of the great restoration work that was coming out of Fox. So that's where we're at. So is there an answer to this thing? No, but I will say my opinion, I think it's totally wrong. It's totally wrong that Disney has a rich cinematic history here that they are willing to ignore and just put for streaming. Now, we could get into the whole technical side of streaming versus Blu-ray disc and 4K UHD Blu-ray disc, which there's less bitrate here as opposed to more bitrate here. We've been through there and we've been down that path. But again, we need to start looking at it this way. There's always gonna be a collector. There's always gonna be a collector's market. And the collector's market should not be neglected. It wasn't neglected back in the day, except people who had laser discs had the movies in the correct aspect ratio and audio commentary and bells and whistles, and you didn't have that on VHS. And I think the big mistake was the industry making that stuff available to the mass market when I don't think the mass market was even interested in that. But they sort of made that the only version of choice. I hope Disney wakes up. I hope that this is just all of us people jumping the gun and making a bigger deal out of it where it isn't. Now, I don't mean to be ragging on Disney. Let me just say here, Disney as a movie studio and the history of Disney, despite a couple of bad things here along the way, which I'm not going to get into. There's plenty of YouTube videos out there about it. But Walt Disney himself, they were innovative. The animated films they did, innovative. And as a company, as an imagination factory, it can't be beat. As a business is what I have a problem with. That's the issue. This sort of world dominance that they're trying to do. I was against the Fox sale to begin with, because I'm like, what's to stop them from now buying Columbia? And what's to stop them now from buying Warner Brothers? That's not going to happen. Or Paramount. It's only going to be one studio, and you're going to get one-stop shop entertainment, and it's going to be one thing. Or one type of thing. There's my rant for today. Let me know your thoughts. Drop me a line. Keep them professional as usual. And I appreciate you guys sticking with me. This is probably a bit long, but I really appreciate you guys sticking with me. And I will talk to you guys soon.